The worst part was not falling. It was hearing them laugh before I hit the floor. I had been working the dinner shift at Bellavita for 6 hours, long enough for the smile on my face to ache and the arches of my feet to burn inside shoes I had bought secondhand from a nurse who said they were almost new. They were not. Nothing in my life was almost new anymore. Not the black waitress uniform I had stitched twice under the left arm. Not the canvas bag tucked beneath the service counter with a clinic bill, half a granola bar, and the first picture of my baby folded inside the zipper pocket. Not me. I was 24 years old, 12 weeks pregnant, and trying very hard not to look like a girl one bad night away from sleeping in her car. Bellavita was the kind of restaurant where people paid $48 for pasta and complained if the basil leaned too far left. Gold lights hung low over white tablecloths. Wine glasses sparkled like little trophies. The marble floor was so polished I could see pieces of myself in it when I looked down. A pale face. Light brown hair pinned low at the back of my neck. Blue eyes too tired for my age. A hand that kept drifting toward my stomach whenever no one was watching. I had promised myself I would get through the shift. For more hours. Maybe 5 if Vanessa decided to punish me with closing duties again. Tips tonight could cover part of the motel bill. Not all of it, but enough to stop the woman at the front desk from giving me that look when I asked if I could pay the rest Friday. I was balancing a tray of water glasses when Vanessa Cole stepped into my path. She wore a fitted black manager dress, red lipstick, and the expression of someone who had never had to count quarters at a gas station counter. "Emily," she said, low enough that guests would not hear, sharp enough that the kitchen staff would. "Table 12 has been waiting. I am on my way." "You are always on your way. That is the problem." My fingers tightened around the tray. The ice inside the glasses clicked softly. "I am sorry." I said those words so often they no longer felt like language. They felt like rent. Vanessa's eyes moved over my face, my uniform, the slight tremor in my wrist. "Fix your posture. You look miserable." I wanted to tell her I had thrown up behind the bus stop that morning. I wanted to tell her I had eaten crackers for dinner 3 nights in a row because everything else made me sick or cost too much. I wanted to tell her that the father of my child had stopped answering my calls the day I said the word pregnant. Instead, I nodded. "Yes, ma'am." A laugh came from the bar. Not at me, maybe, but it landed that way. I moved toward table 12, where 4 men sat beneath the warmest light in the room. They were not loud. That was the first thing I noticed. Wealthy men were often loud because they expected space to make room for them. These men were quiet, and the silence around them had weight. The man at the head of the table looked up as I approached. Dominic Kane. I knew his name because every server did. Owner of half the restaurants people whispered about. Connected to businesses nobody put in writing. Feared in the way storms were feared, not because they shouted, but because they changed the pressure in a room. He was 34, white, with dark hair, a calm face, and eyes that did not wander. They observed. His black suit fit like it had been made around his authority. A gold watch sat at his wrist, partly hidden by his cuff. "Water?" I asked. My voice stayed steady. "Small miracle." He nodded once. "Please." Not sweetheart. Not darling. Not the kind of lazy name men used when they did not care to read yours. Just please. I poured for his table, careful, precise, invisible the way good service was supposed to be. But I felt him watching me. Not like the others. Not with hunger. With calculation. His gaze dropped once to my hand when it hovered near my stomach. Then to the faint clinic sticker on the corner of my bag near the service station. Then back to my face. I looked away first. Across the dining room, Vanessa snapped her fingers. "Emily." Now. I turned too quickly. The room tilted. The chandeliers smeared into circles of gold. My stomach clenched. Not pain exactly, just a deep warning from a body I had been ignoring for too long. I grabbed the edge of a nearby chair to steady myself. A woman at the next table frowned as if my weakness had interrupted her appetizer. "Are you drunk?" someone muttered. Heat rose in my cheeks. "No. I am sorry. Always sorry." I took one step. Then another. The tray shifted. Water slid toward the rims. My fingers went numb. I heard Vanessa hiss my name. Heard a man chuckle. Heard the marble floor rush closer before I understood my knees had given out. The glasses hit first, water spreading in bright sheets across the floor. I caught myself on one hand. Breath gone. The room spinning above me. My bag slipped from the service shelf and fell open beside me. Receipts scattered. Lip balm rolled under a chair. The folded clinic paper slid out last, opening just enough for the black and white baby scan to show under the restaurant lights. Someone laughed again. Then Dominic Kane stood up, and the sound died like a candle in a closed room. Dominic Kane did not rush toward me. That somehow made it worse. Everyone else froze with the awkward stillness people use when they are waiting to see whether a stranger's pain will become their inconvenience. But Dominic moved slowly, deliberately, like the floor belonged to him, and the room had already agreed. His chair slid back without a scrape. His men looked up, but did not stand until he lifted 2 fingers. Then they rose at once. The laughter vanished. Forks stopped halfway to mouths. Vanessa's red lips parted, and for the first time since I had worked at Bellavita, she looked unsure of which version of herself to perform. I tried to push myself up, but my palm slipped on the water. "I am fine," I whispered, though nobody had asked. That was habit too. Being fine before anyone could accuse me of being dramatic. Being fine because not fine cost money. Dominic stopped beside me and looked down, not at my uniform, not at the broken glasses, not at the guests pretending not to stare. At my face. "Do not move yet," he said. His voice was low, calm, and impossible to argue with. I hated that my body listened before my pride did. Vanessa hurried forward, heels clicking against the marble. "Mr. Kane, I am so sorry. She has been off all night. I will get this cleaned up immediately." She reached toward my arm, but Dominic turned his head. Just that. Nothing dramatic. No raised voice. No threat. Yet Vanessa stopped, so suddenly her bracelet chimed against her wrist. "Did I ask you to touch her?" he said. The room went colder. Vanessa swallowed. "No, sir." Then stepped back. She did. I stared at the floor because looking at him felt too much like being seen, and I was not ready for that. My bag lay open inches from my knee. The baby scan had slid fully out now, the tiny black and white curve resting against a spilled receipt and a packet of crackers. I reached for it, panic rising hot in my throat, but Dominic was closer. He picked it up carefully between 2 fingers, not like evidence, not like gossip, but like something fragile enough to deserve clean hands. His eyes moved across the printed label. Emily Harper, 12 weeks. Yesterday's date. My entire secret, reduced to medical ink and a gray blur small enough to fit in a purse. I wanted the floor to open under me. I wanted every person in that restaurant to forget my name. I wanted Tyler to answer one phone call, one message, one desperate question I had left on his voicemail from the parking lot of the clinic. Dominic looked at the scan for a long second. When he looked back at me, something in his expression had changed. Not pity. I knew pity. Pity looked away quickly because it was embarrassed to have witnessed need. This was different. This was anger held behind glass. "Whose table laughed?" he asked. Nobody answered. The silence was thick and guilty. A man near the bar cleared his throat and looked down at his drink. Vanessa tried to smile. "Mr. Kane," the guests were not laughing at her. It was just a misunderstanding. Dominic did not look at her. I asked a simple question. My face burned. "Please do not." The words escaped before I could stop them. His eyes returned to me. "Do not what?" "Make this worse." A faint crease appeared between his brows, almost invisible. Worse than collapsing while people laugh. My throat tightened. I had no answer. Because yes, somehow, worse was always possible when you were poor. Worse was getting fired. Worse was losing the motel. Worse was having no place to be sick in private. Worse was someone powerful deciding your humiliation was a problem to solve in public. "I need this job," I said. It came out quieter than I meant it to. Dominic's gaze dropped to the scan in his hand, then to my face. "You need a doctor." Vanessa stepped in again, careful this time. "We can call someone after closing. Emily has a history of being overly sensitive during busy shifts." I looked up at her. Overly sensitive. The words were polished enough to pass as concern and sharp enough to draw blood without leaving marks. Dominic finally turned toward her fully. "How long has she been working tonight?" Vanessa blinked. "I would have to check the schedule." "Check it." One of his men moved before she could. Vanessa's smile stiffened. "That is not necessary." It became necessary when an employee collapsed in my restaurant, and your first instinct was reputation management. My restaurant. I had known, in the vague way servers knew things, that Dominic owned a piece of Bellavita. Hearing him say it made the air change. Vanessa understood it too. Her face drained of color beneath her makeup. A busboy appeared with towels. Another server brought a chair. I tried to stand again, humiliation pushing me harder than strength could support, but Dominic crouched slightly, bringing his voice closer without invading my space. Emily, look at me. I did not want to. I did anyway. His eyes were dark, steady, and too aware. You are going to sit in that chair. You are going to drink water. A doctor is coming. No one here decides what happens to your job except me. My lips trembled despite everything I did to stop them. You do not even know me. I know enough. No, you know one thing. I glanced at the scan, and that is not yours to hold. For a second, the room disappeared. It was just his hand, the baby's scan, and my voice finally sounding like it belonged to me. Dominic nodded once and handed it back immediately. No argument. No ownership. No performance. I took it and pressed it against my chest with both hands. That small respect broke something in me more than cruelty had. Then the front doors opened behind him, letting in a gust of cold Chicago rain and the sound of men laughing too loudly. I knew that laugh before I turned. My body knew it first. Tyler Brooks walked into Bellavita wearing an expensive coat I had helped him pick out months ago, a silver watch he claimed was a gift, and the careless smile of a man who had never paid the full price of anything he broke. His eyes swept the room, landed on me sitting beside spilled water with Dominic Kane standing over me, then dropped to the baby scan in my hands. The smile faltered, only for a second. Then he recovered and laughed. Emily, he said, loud enough for the room to hear. What are you doing now? Dominic turned slowly toward him, and for the first time all night, I saw Tyler realize he had chosen the wrong room. Tyler Brooks had always known how to enter a room like he expected forgiveness to be waiting for him. He smiled first. That was his trick. The smile came before the explanation, before the lie, before the soft little laugh that made other people feel unreasonable for remembering what he had done. I had loved that smile once. Or maybe I had loved the version of myself who believed it meant safety. Now, sitting in a restaurant chair with my knees weak, my uniform damp from spilled water, and the baby scan pressed against my chest, I watched that smile search for a way out. Tyler's friends slowed behind him, expensive coats dripping rain onto the marble floor. One of them whispered something and glanced at Dominic Kane. The laughter that had followed them inside faded into an uneasy quiet. Tyler noticed. His eyes flicked from Dominic to the men at table 12, then to Vanessa, then back to me. He did the math badly, but he did it fast. Emily, he said again, softer this time, like we were having a private disagreement instead of standing inside the ruins of my dignity. You should have called me. I almost laughed. I had called 7 times the first week. For the second. Then I stopped, because there was something humiliating about hearing your own hope turn into voicemail. Dominic stood between us, not touching me, not blocking my view, just present in a way that made the room understand distance differently. You know her, he said. It was not a question. Tyler adjusted his coat sleeve. His silver watch flashed under the chandelier light. We dated. Briefly. The word landed on the baby scan like dust on a clean window. 8 months, I said. My voice was quiet, but it carried because the room had gone still enough to hear ice melt. We lived together for 3. Tyler's jaw tightened, then loosened into another smile. Come on, Em. Do we really need to do this here? Dominic's head turned slightly toward me. Do you want him removed from the restaurant? Removed. Not punished. Not hurt. Just gone. The difference mattered, and somehow that made me ache. I shook my head before fear could answer for me. No, Tyler's smile widened with relief. Too soon. I want him to tell the truth. The smile stopped. Vanessa stepped forward, voice thin. Emily, this is not appropriate during service. Dominic did not look away from Tyler. Service ended when my employee collapsed and half the dining room forgot its manners. My employee. The word should have scared me. Instead, something inside me steadied. Not because I belonged to him. Because for the first time all night, someone was naming responsibility upward instead of pushing shame down. Tyler lifted both hands in a harmless gesture. Look, I do not know what she has told you, but Emily gets emotional. She is under stress. I tried to help her. I felt my fingers curl around the scan. You signed the apartment lease. To help you qualify. Then you stopped paying your half. I had business issues. You emptied our account. His friends shifted uncomfortably. A woman near the bar lowered her wine glass. Tyler's face flushed. That was shared money. It was rent. My throat tightened, but I kept going. It was the clinic bill. It was the motel deposit. It was everything I had left after you said you needed a few days and disappeared. Dominic's expression did not change, but one of his men took out a phone and began typing. Tyler saw it. Hey, wait. Who are you calling? An attorney, Dominic said. For what? Documentation. The word was calm enough to be terrifying. Tyler laughed once, too loud. This is insane. She is making me look like some kind of criminal because she got embarrassed at work. I stood then. Too fast. The room tilted again, but I held the back of the chair and stayed upright. Dominic noticed. He moved half an inch, then stopped when I steadied myself, letting me stand, letting me choose. That was new. You left me at a clinic, I said. My voice did not shake now. It burned too cleanly for that. You told me you were parking the car. I waited 40 minutes before I understood you were not coming back. Tyler's face went still. There were some truths charm could not soften. Some rooms even a good suit could not rescue him from. Dominic's eyes darkened. Is that true? Tyler looked at him, then at me. I panicked. The confession was small, pathetic, almost worse than denial. I was not ready. I looked down at the baby scan, the little gray shape that had changed everything. Neither was I. Silence followed. Not empty silence. Full silence. The kind that forced people to sit with what they had heard. Then Vanessa, because cruelty hates being left out, said, whatever happened between them is personal. Emily still created a scene in the dining room. Dominic turned toward her at last. She collapsed. She has been unreliable for weeks. Because she is pregnant and working double shifts. She never disclosed that to management. I looked at Vanessa. I was afraid you would cut my hours. Her mouth closed. Dominic's attorney arrived 15 minutes later, a woman in a navy coat with sharp eyes and a leather briefcase. A doctor arrived 3 minutes after that, carrying a medical bag and no judgment. Bellavita's front doors were locked. Guests were politely offered refunds and private cars. Cameras were saved. Schedules printed. Payroll records pulled. Every quiet thing that had been done to make me smaller began turning into paper. Tyler sat at a corner table now, no longer smiling. Vanessa stood near the host's stand, pale and furious. Dominic remained beside me while the doctor checked my pulse and asked gentle questions. I answered what I could. When she asked when I had last eaten, I looked away. Dominic heard the silence. Of course he did. A bowl of soup appeared 5 minutes later, warm enough to fog the spoon. I did not ask who ordered it. I already knew. After the doctor said I needed rest, fluids, and follow-up care, Dominic took his black coat from the back of his chair and held it out to me. I hesitated. I do not need charity. Good, he said, because I am not offering any. I looked up. Then what is this? His gaze dropped briefly to the scan in my hand, then returned to my face. A coat, a car, a doctor, and enough space for you to decide what happens next without people laughing while you fall. My eyes stung. I hated that. I hated how kindness could feel more dangerous than insult when you had gone too long without it. Tyler stood suddenly. Emily, you cannot just leave with him. Dominic looked at him, and the whole restaurant seemed to hold its breath. She can leave with whoever makes her feel safe. Tyler opened his mouth. Nothing came out. I slipped Dominic's coat over my shoulders. It was too large, heavy with warmth and the faint scent of cedar and rain. For the first time that night, I did not apologize. I walked toward the private exit with the baby skin tucked safely inside my bag. And behind me, Dominic Kane said to Tyler in a voice so quiet I almost missed it, "The child you abandoned is not leverage anymore." The private exit behind Bellavita opened into an alley washed silver by Chicago rain. Cold air hit my face so sharply that I realized how overheated the restaurant had been, how long I had stood under gold lights pretending exhaustion was professionalism. Dominic's coat hung over my shoulders like a borrowed wall, too heavy and too warm, the sleeves falling past my hands. I should have felt foolish. Instead, I felt hidden from the eyes still burning through the back of my mind. The laughter, Vanessa's voice, Tyler saying I was emotional, as if emotion were a crime only poor women committed. A black sedan waited at the curb with its engine running. One of Dominic's men held the rear door open, but I stopped before getting in. Rain dotted the baby scan envelope in my hand. Dominic noticed and stepped slightly to the side, shielding the paper without touching me. "Where are you taking me?" I asked. My voice sounded steadier outside, maybe because the city did not know me well enough to judge. "A private clinic 2 miles from here," he said. "The doctor wants an ultrasound fluids, and blood work. After that, you decide. Decide what? Where you feel safe tonight. The word safe made my chest tighten. Safe had become one of those words people used in commercials and school posters, not in rooms I could actually afford. My motel door had a chain lock that did not slide correctly. The vending machine outside my room hummed all night. A man in room 7 argued with his phone until 3 in the morning. Safe was not a place. It was a fantasy with better credit. I have a room, I said. Dominic's eyes moved over my face. He did not argue. That made it harder. At the Lakeview Motor Inn, he said quietly. I froze. How do you know that? My attorney pulled the emergency contact information you gave Bellavita. Heat rose in my cheeks, bright and immediate. That is private. Yes. And you still looked. Yes. The honesty irritated me more than an excuse would have. You do not get to collect pieces of my life because I fainted in your restaurant. For the first time, something like regret crossed his face. Brief. Controlled. Real. You are right. I blinked. I was not prepared for agreement. Dominic looked toward the rain-dark street, then back at me. I have spent years learning how to find danger before it arrives. Sometimes that makes me cross lines before I ask whether I should. That is not your fault. The alley went quiet except for water dripping from the fire escape above us. I should have hated him. Maybe part of me did. But another part, the tired part, the part still hearing the restaurant laugh, understood the difference between a man who invaded to control and a man who overreached because he thought time mattered. Do you think Tyler is dangerous? I asked. Dominic's expression closed. I think Tyler is careless. That is not the same thing. Careless men become dangerous when consequences find them. The sentence settled under my skin. I thought of Tyler's laugh turning thin when the attorney arrived. The way his hands had moved toward his pockets, then stopped when Dominic looked at him. The way he said I panicked, as if panic could pay back rent or unbreak trust. I got into the sedan. Dominic sat beside me, leaving enough space between us for propriety and too much truth. The city moved past the windows in streaks of red taillights and wet pavement. My stomach rolled once, and I closed my eyes. A bottle of water appeared near my hand. Not pushed, just placed. I took it. Thank you, I whispered. You do not have to thank me for water. I thank people for less. You should not have had to. I opened my eyes and looked at him. In the soft darkness of the car, Dominic Kane looked less like a rumor and more like a man carrying old damage carefully folded behind his ribs. A faint tattoo showed at his wrist where his cuff had shifted, black ink curving over pale skin. Something simple. A date, maybe. Or a name. He caught me looking and adjusted his sleeve without embarrassment. My mother's birthday, he said. I looked away. I did not ask. No, but you noticed. That made me quiet. The clinic was tucked inside a brick building with no sign except a brass number beside the door. A nurse met us before we reached the entrance. She was older, with kind eyes and gray hair pinned neatly back. Miss Harper, she said, as if I were expected and not a problem. We have a room ready. Expected, not a problem. Those words almost undid me. The exam room smelled like antiseptic, warm blankets, and lavender hand soap. The doctor from Bellavita checked my blood pressure again, listened carefully, and told me dehydration and stress had pushed my body too far. No judgment, no lecture, just facts. When she prepared the ultrasound, Dominic stood immediately. I will wait outside. The respect was automatic. I nodded before I could overthink it. Alone with the doctor and the soft machine hum, I stared at the ceiling tiles while cold gel touched my stomach and the screen flickered to life. Then I heard it. Fast. Tiny. Steady. A heartbeat. My hand flew to my mouth. The doctor smiled. Strong, she said. Tears slid into my hair before I could stop them. Strong. After everything, strong. When Dominic returned later, he did not ask what I had seen. He waited near the doorway while I sat under a blanket, holding the fresh printout like it was made of light. The baby is okay, I said. His shoulders lowered by half an inch. It was the only sign he had been worried. Good. The nurse entered with discharge papers, then paused when she saw the clinic folder in my lap. Her eyes moved to my name, Emily Harper, then to Dominic. Something flickered across her face. Recognition. Not of me. Of him. Mr. Kane, she said softly. I did not realize she was the young woman from Bellavita. Dominic's gaze sharpened. You know something? The nurse hesitated, then looked at me with unexpected tenderness. I knew another young mother once. Years ago, she came through this clinic with no one beside her too. Dominic went very still. My mother, he said. The room changed. The nurse swallowed. She made me promise that if your family ever failed to protect someone vulnerable, I would remind you what it cost her. Dominic looked down at the ultrasound in my hands, and for the first time, his power seemed less like a weapon and more like a debt he had inherited. Then he turned to me, voice quiet. Tell me who taught you that you had to suffer quietly. Dominic's question stayed in the exam room long after he said it. Tell me who taught you that you had to suffer quietly. The words should have been simple. A question, an invitation, maybe even concern. But they landed in places I kept locked because opening them never paid the bills. I looked down at the fresh ultrasound printout in my lap, at the tiny shape the doctor said was strong, and my thumb moved over the edge of the paper until it bent slightly. Strong. People loved that word when they did not want to look too closely at what survival had cost. The nurse stood near the counter with her hands folded, her eyes gentle in a way that made me want to cry and run at the same time. Dominic remained by the door, giving me space, but not distance. There was a difference. Space meant I could breathe. Distance meant he could pretend this was not his problem. Life, I said finally. My voice sounded small under the hum of the medical lights. Life taught me. Dominic did not move. That is too easy an answer. I almost smiled. Nothing about it was easy. The nurse quietly excused herself, leaving the room with the softness of someone who understood that some stories needed fewer witnesses. The door clicked shut. I kept my eyes on the ultrasound because looking at Dominic made honesty feel too exposed. My mother worked 2 jobs after my father left, I said. She used to say crying was something women did in the shower because hot water covered the sound. I thought she was joking when I was little. Then I got older and realized she meant it. Rain tapped faintly against the small clinic window. Chicago looked softer from up here, all blurred lights and wet pavement, but I knew what waited below. Rent notices. Phone calls. Men like Tyler who borrowed your future and called it a misunderstanding. She died when I was 19. I continued. Breast cancer. She hid it until she could not. Said she did not want me to worry. Said bills were easier to handle than pity. My throat tightened. I hated her for that for a long time. Then I became exactly like her. Dominic's expression changed, just enough. Pain recognized pain before people did. And Tyler, he asked. I laughed once, without humor. Tyler was charming. That was the problem. He acted like rest. Like somebody finally noticed I was tired and wanted to carry something for me. I shook my head. He moved fast. Helped me get the apartment. Signed the lease because my credit was not enough. Bought groceries the first week. Told me I worked too hard. Told me I deserved softer things. Then soft things became favors. Favors became reminders. Reminders became debt. The words came easier now, maybe because I had never said them all in order. If I went out with friends, he said I was ungrateful. If I picked up an extra shift, he said I cared more about money than us. If I got quiet, he said I was punishing him. And when I found out I was pregnant, he looked at me like I had handed him a bill he did not want to pay. Dominic's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed calm. Did he ever make you feel unsafe? I understood what he was asking. I also understood what he was careful not to ask. Not in the way people put in reports, I said. No bruises. No screaming in front of neighbors. Just doors closed too hard. My phone checked when I was asleep. My paycheck counted before I could deposit it. Little things that made the room smaller every week. Dominic looked away for a moment. When he looked back, the darkness in his eyes had sharpened into something controlled. That counts. 2 words. No lecture. No demand for proof. It counts. I did not realize how badly I needed someone to say that until my eyes burned. I blinked hard. I do not want revenge. Good. That surprised me. Good. Revenge makes men like Tyler feel important. Consequences make them small. I looked at him then. Really looked. The black suit, the expensive watch, the tattoo partly hidden beneath his cuff, the calm authority that followed him like weather. He belonged to a world where consequences arrived in private rooms and quiet phone calls. I should have been terrified of that. Maybe I was. But I was more tired of being the only person consequences could find. What happens now? I asked. Dominic stepped away from the door and pulled a chair near the wall, not beside the bed, not too close. He sat like a man choosing not to tower over me. Now, you rest tonight. My attorney files emergency notices about the apartment, your wages, and the medical bills. Bellavita covers your treatment because you collapsed during a shift in my restaurant. Vanessa is suspended pending review. Tyler is informed that disappearing does not erase financial responsibility. My mouth went dry. You already decided all that. No, he said. I prepared it. You decide what we use. The difference slipped under my guard. Prepared, not forced. For the first time all night, help did not feel like a hand closing around my throat. Why? I whispered. And do not say because of the baby. He looked at the ultrasound in my lap. Because my mother once sat in a clinic like this with people deciding what her life was worth. His voice grew quieter. She survived the decision. She did not survive what it took from her. The door opened before I could ask what he meant. The nurse returned, holding an old file folder against her chest. Her face had gone pale. Mr. Kane, she said carefully, there is something you need to see. Dominic stood. The nurse looked at me, then placed the folder on the counter. Tyler Brooks signed a payment authorization at this clinic 3 months ago. My breath stopped. That is impossible. I had never been here before tonight. The nurse nodded slowly. It was not for you. Dominic opened the folder. His eyes moved across the page, and the room seemed to lose temperature. Who was the patient? I asked. He did not answer fast enough. That was the answer. I sat up straighter, one hand instinctively protecting the ultrasound. Dominic looked at me, his voice quiet enough to make fear feel formal. A woman using your name. The name on the file was mine, but the life inside it belonged to someone else. Emily Harper. Same spelling. Same birth month. Same address from my old apartment on West Belmont. The one Tyler had helped me get before he helped me lose it. I stared at the paper in Dominic's hand until the letters stopped looking like language and became something colder. A door opening where no door should have been. A woman using my name, I repeated. My voice sounded far away, like it had traveled down a long hallway before reaching me. For what? The nurse looked at Dominic first, not because she did not respect me, but because she was afraid of what the answer might do to the room. That made my stomach twist. Tell me, I said. She turned back to me. The appointment was listed as prenatal intake, but the notes are strange. No ultrasound was completed. No lab work finalized. The patient left before the visit was finished. I blinked. Then why is there a payment authorization? Dominic's eyes moved down the page. Because Tyler paid the deposit in advance. Why would he do that? Nobody answered quickly enough. My hand went to my stomach. Not dramatically. Instinctively. The baby was still safe. The heartbeat was still strong. I repeated that silently, because fear loves empty spaces, and I could not give it one. Dominic handed the folder back to the nurse. Print a copy. Full chain of access. No one deletes anything. Already done, she said. I locked the record after I saw the signature. Dominic's gaze softened almost imperceptibly. Thank you, Ruth. Ruth. The nurse had a name now. Not just kindness and scrubs. Not just a witness. Ruth looked at me with the careful sadness of someone who had watched powerful families turn paperwork into cages. Miss Harper, did Tyler have access to your identification? I laughed once, small and sick. He had access to everything. We lived together. My driver's license in the kitchen drawer. My social security card in the folder with lease papers. My insurance card, old pay stubs, clinic forms, everything adults were supposed to protect, because losing them meant proving you existed all over again. He said I was disorganized. I whispered. He put all my documents in one place so I would not lose them. Dominic went very still. I looked up at him. That was not help, was it? His answer was quiet. No. The word hurt more than a longer explanation would have. No. Not help. Not love. Not care. Control, dressed in competence. Ruth opened another page from the folder. There is more. The contact number attached to the appointment was not yours. It belongs to a prepaid phone. But the emergency contact listed was Tyler Brooks. Dominic's expression closed, every trace of softness tucked away. And the clinic location? This one, Ruth said. But the referral came through a community program connected to St. Agnes Shelter. The name struck something in me. St. Agnes. I had seen it once on a brochure tucked under Tyler's car seat. Back when he said he was helping a friend with paperwork. I had believed him because belief was easier than suspicion when you were exhausted. He was using my name for someone at a shelter? I asked. Possibly, Ruth said. Or using the shelter to create a paper trail. Dominic's attorney, the woman in the navy coat, stepped into the room after a brief knock. Her eyes moved from my face to the file and sharpened immediately. "I just received the preliminary report from Bellavita's payroll server," she said. "Tyler's name appears on an outside vendor invoice approved by Vanessa Cole." My mouth went dry. Vanessa? The payment description is vague. Event security consulting. Dominic's voice dropped. Bellavita does not use outside security consultants. The attorney nodded. Exactly. The room seemed to narrow around me. Tyler. Vanessa. A fake clinic record. My name. A woman I did not know. A shelter. None of the pieces fit, but all of them had edges sharp enough to cut me. Why me? I asked. I am nobody. Dominic looked at me then, and something in his eyes made the word nobody feel like an insult to him personally. People like Tyler choose women they think no one will defend. My throat tightened. He did not choose wrong until tonight. No, Dominic said. He chose wrong the moment he used your name. The attorney placed her phone on the counter. There is another issue. Tyler tried to access Emily's employee file 30 minutes ago through Vanessa's manager login. Ruth stepped closer to me. What would he need from that? Current address, Dominic said. I thought of the Lakeview Motor Inn, the broken chain lock, the vending machine humming outside my door, the motel key card in my bag. My skin went cold. Dominic saw my face and turned to his attorney. Send someone to the motel. Quietly. Recover her belongings. Pay the bill. Make sure no one waiting there gets near her things. I opened my mouth to object, then stopped. Pride was a roof when it kept rain off. It was a trap when it kept help out. My mother's necklace is in the nightstand, I said quietly. A little gold cross. It is all I have of hers. Dominic's eyes held mine. It will come back to you. For words. Not a promise made for drama. A statement placed on the table like something already in motion. My breath shook. I hated that relief could feel like surrender. Where am I supposed to go? I asked. The room softened around the question. Ruth looked away. The attorney checked her papers. Dominic did not. He met my eyes directly. There is an apartment above the clinic. Private. Empty. You can stay there tonight with Ruth downstairs and a doctor on call. I will not be inside unless you ask. I searched his face for the catch. There had always been a catch with Tyler. A favor turned into a debt. A kindness turned into leverage. Dominic seemed to understand, because he added, no locks from the outside. No one controls your phone. No decisions made without you. My hand tightened over the ultrasound. And Tyler. Dominic glanced at the file with my stolen name on it. Tyler is about to learn that paperwork remembers what people deny. Before I could answer, the attorney's phone buzzed. She read the message and looked up slowly. The woman who used Emily's name just came into St. Agnes shelter 10 minutes ago. My heart slammed once. Dominic's eyes sharpened. Is she safe? The attorney swallowed. She is asking for Emily. The room went silent. I felt the baby scan in my lap, my mother's absence around my neck, and my own name suddenly standing somewhere across the city in another woman's mouth. Why? I whispered. The attorney looked at me, then at Dominic. She says Tyler told her Emily Harper could protect her. St. Agnes Shelter sat on the west side of Chicago in a brick building with barred ground floor windows and a blue cross painted above the entrance. It was the kind of place people passed without looking directly at it, because looking meant admitting how close anyone could come to needing the door. I should have been resting in the apartment above the clinic. Ruth had said that twice. The doctor had said it once with the careful firmness of someone used to being ignored by people under stress. Dominic had not said it at all. He had only watched me hold the ultrasound printout against my chest and asked to see the woman using my name. You can say no, he told me in the car. I know. Do you? I looked at him then. Rain moved over the window beside his face, turning the city lights into broken gold. I am learning. He nodded once, like that answer mattered. The sedan stopped half a block from the shelter. No convoy this time. No dramatic line of black cars. Just Dominic, his attorney, one driver, and me in the back seat wearing his coat over my waitress uniform. The coat still smelled faintly of cedar and rain. My own clothes smelled like spilled water in Bellavita's kitchen, like the life I had been living before my name became a door other people had used. Inside the shelter, the air was warm and crowded with quiet exhaustion. A woman at the front desk recognized Dominic and immediately straightened, not with fear exactly, but with the alertness people showed when power entered a fragile place. Dominic lowered his voice. We are here for the woman asking for Emily Harper. The woman looked at me then, and her expression softened. She is in the chapel room. My pulse jumped. Is she okay? Scared, the woman said. But safe. Safe. That word again. It sounded different in a shelter. Less like comfort. More like a temporary agreement the world might break if no one guarded the door. The chapel room was small, with folding chairs, a wooden cross on the wall, and a vending machine humming in the corner like it did not understand grief. A young woman sat in the front row, both hands wrapped around a paper cup. She had dark hair cut unevenly at her shoulders, a pale face, and eyes that lifted to mine with such desperate recognition that I stopped just inside the doorway. She knew me. Not personally. Not really. But she had been carrying my name long enough that seeing my face felt like catching herself in a lie she had not chosen. Emily, she whispered. My throat tightened. Yes. She stood too fast, then steadied herself on the chair. I am sorry. I am so sorry. He told me you knew. Dominic remained near the door, not crowding her, not letting the room forget he was there. His attorney opened a notebook. I held up one hand. No, not yet. The attorney paused. Dominic looked at me. I looked at the young woman. What is your name? Her eyes filled. Mara. Mara Ellis. The name sounded real because it trembled. She sat again, and I took the chair across from her, moving slowly because my body still felt borrowed from someone weaker than I wanted to be. Mara, I said, why were you using my name? She stared into the paper cup. Tyler said it would keep me off the records. He said he knew someone at the clinic. Said if I used your file, no one from my boyfriend's family could find me. Dominic's eyes sharpened at the word boyfriend, but he said nothing. I was grateful. Mara continued, words spilling faster now. I did not know you were real at first. I thought it was just a name. Then I saw your employee badge in his car. He said you were his cousin. He said you helped women leave bad situations. A strange pain opened behind my ribs. Tyler had turned my silence into a service. My stolen documents into a shelter for another woman. My name into a shield I had never agreed to hold. Why come here tonight? I asked. Mara looked toward Dominic, then back at me. Because Tyler called me after something happened at a restaurant. He sounded scared. He said people were asking questions and I needed to disappear before morning. But then he said if anything went wrong, to find Emily Harper because she owed him. My fingers went cold. I owed him. She nodded, ashamed. He said you would understand. I did understand. Not the lie. The pattern. Tyler made women carry his consequences and called it loyalty. He made fear sound like debt. Dominic stepped forward one pace. Did Vanessa Cole arrange the clinic appointment? Mara's face changed. There it was. Another piece clicking into place. The manager? Blonde woman? Red lipstick? Yes, I said. Mara nodded. She met Tyler outside the clinic. She gave him paperwork. I heard her say your file was clean because you were quiet and had no family who would ask questions. The room blurred for a second. No family. The phrase still found me even in places it had no right to enter. My hand moved to my stomach, and the baby seemed to become heavier beneath my palm, not in weight, but in meaning. I was someone's family now. That changed the shape of everything. Dominic's attorney wrote quickly, her face tight. Dominic looked at me, not with pity, not with command, but with a question. How far do you want to go? I stood slowly. Mara looked afraid I was leaving her. Emily, I did not know. I believe you. Her shoulders broke with relief. I reached into my bag and took out the older ultrasound photo, the one that had fallen on Bellavita's marble floor. I looked at it once, then tucked it safely back beside the new printout. You did not steal my name, I said. He did. Mara began to cry silently. I turned to Dominic. I want Vanessa's records. Tyler's messages. Every payment connected to my file. And I want Mara protected too. His gaze held mine. Done. No hesitation. No reminder that it would cost money. No lecture about danger. Just done. Outside the chapel room, thunder rolled low over the city. Dominic's attorney stepped into the hallway to make calls. Ruth's voice came through her phone a minute later, confirming the clinic record had been secured. My motel belongings were being recovered. My mother's necklace had been found in the nightstand. One small mercy after another, lined up against a night that kept trying to take things from me. Mara wiped her face. Why would you help me after what happened? I looked at Dominic, then at the little wooden cross on the wall, then down at my hands. Hands that had carried plates, counted tips, held rent notices, pressed against a life growing quietly inside me while the room laughed. Because I know what it feels like to need help and be mistaken for a problem. Dominic's phone buzzed. He read the message, and the calm left his face so completely that the shelter room seemed to lose warmth. "What is it?" I asked. He looked at me, then at Mara. "Tyler just tried to leave Chicago." My stomach tightened. "Let him." Dominic shook his head once. He was not alone. The words settled like ice. His voice lowered. "Vanessa was with him, and she had a folder with your medical records." The folder with my medical records should have been the smallest part of the night. Paper, ink, a few printed pages that proved appointments, blood pressure, dates, and a heartbeat no one in that restaurant had the right to mock. But when Dominic said Vanessa had it, my body reacted before my mind could. My hand closed over my stomach. The chapel room at St. Agnes seemed to narrow around me, folding in from the corners until there was only the hum of the vending machine, Mara's quiet breathing, and Dominic Kane looking at his phone like it had just confirmed something he had hoped was not true. "Why would she take my records?" I asked. My voice came out thin. Dominic did not answer immediately. That frightened me more than any quick response would have. His attorney stepped back into the room, phone still pressed to her ear, her navy coat damp from the rain. "They were stopped at Midway before boarding," she said. "Airport security flagged the names after your request. No scene. No public incident. They are being held in a private office until counsel arrives." Counsel. Held. Flagged. The words sounded clean, almost gentle, but I understood the shape beneath them. Consequences, wearing a suit. Dominic looked at me. Vanessa was not just helping Tyler. My throat tightened. "What does that mean?" Mara lowered her paper cup. "She was selling names," she whispered. We all turned toward her. Her face had gone pale under the shelter lights. I did not understand it before. Tyler said some women needed clean records. Other women needed to disappear from records. Vanessa knew which employees had no family nearby, who needed money, who would be too embarrassed to ask questions. The room went still. I thought of Bellavita's break room. The schedule taped beside the coffee machine. Girls circling extra shifts in blue pen. Women counting tips behind lockers. People like me, tired enough to accept unfairness as weather. Vanessa had not just seen us. She had sorted us. "How many?" I asked. Mara looked down. "I do not know." Dominic's attorney's expression hardened. "We will." Dominic turned to me. "Emily, I need your permission to use your file as evidence." Permission. Again, that impossible word. No one had asked permission when Tyler took my documents. No one had asked when Vanessa opened my employee file. No one had asked when strangers laughed over my open bag and my baby's first picture on a marble floor. "Will it protect Mara?" I asked. "Yes." "Will it protect the other women?" "It can." "Then use it." Dominic's eyes held mine for one beat longer than necessary. Not romantic. Not soft. Something steadier. Respect, maybe. The kind that did not announce itself but changed how the room stood around you. We left St. Agnes after Mara was moved to a private room under the shelter director's care. I hugged her before I went. She was stiff at first, then folded into me like someone who had forgotten what gentleness felt like until it arrived without a bill. Outside, the rain had slowed to mist. Chicago shone under streetlights, wet and restless. Dominic opened the car door, but I stopped beside it. "I want to go to Bellavita." His face changed. "You need rest." "I know. The doctor said stress is part of what made you collapse." "I know that too." "Then why?" I looked down at the coat still around my shoulders. "Because I fell there. Because they laughed there. Because if I only leave through the back door, some part of me will always feel like they were right to make me small." Dominic said nothing for a long moment. Then he nodded and told the driver, "Bellavita." The restaurant looked different after midnight. No candlelit tables. No wealthy laughter. No clinking glasses. Just chairs turned upside down, cleaning lights on, and the marble floor near table 12 so spotless no one would know I had been on it hours before with my whole life spilled open beside me. That almost hurt more. Cruelty was efficient. It cleaned up after itself. Ruth stayed near the entrance with the attorney. Dominic walked beside me, but let me lead. I stopped at the exact place where the baby scan had slid across the floor. I could almost hear it again. The laugh. The water. Vanessa saying I had been off all night. Tyler asking what I was doing now, as if my pain were another inconvenience he had to manage. My hands began to shake. Dominic noticed, but did not touch me. Emily, I am okay. You do not have to be. That was the sentence that broke the night open. Not loudly, not all at once. Just enough for my eyes to sting and my breath to catch. I am so tired of being useful to people who do not care whether I survive them, I whispered. His voice was quiet behind me. Then stop being useful. I turned. I do not know how. He stepped closer, leaving space between us, his tattooed wrist visible beneath his cuff as he held out something small. My mother's gold cross necklace, recovered from the motel nightstand. It rested in his palm, warm from his skin, delicate and real. Start with taking back what belongs to you. I reached for it with shaking fingers. The chain slipped against my palm, and suddenly I was 19 again, sitting beside my mother's hospital bed while she told me to keep going because Harper women did not disappear. I had thought keeping going meant enduring everything quietly. Maybe I had misunderstood her. Maybe survival was not silence. Maybe it was return. The front door opened behind us. Dominic's attorney looked up from her phone. They brought Vanessa and Tyler back from the airport office. They are here with legal counsel. Tyler stepped in first, pale, irritated, trying to look wronged. Vanessa followed, perfect hair disturbed by rain, eyes sharp enough to cut glass. She saw me standing on the clean marble floor in Dominic's coat with my mother's necklace in my hand, and for the first time since I had known her, she looked afraid of me. Not Dominic. Me. I fastened the necklace around my throat. The tiny cross settled against my skin. Then I faced them both. You opened my file? I said. Tyler's mouth tightened. Vanessa lifted her chin. You do not understand what you are involved in. I looked at the place where I had fallen, then back at her. No, you do not understand who you laughed at. Dominic's attorney placed a stack of printed documents on the host stand. Camera logs, payroll records, clinic forms, shelter referral copies. Every quiet crime translated into paper. Vanessa looked at the stack, and the confidence drained from her face one page at a time. Tyler tried to speak, but Dominic's voice cut through the room, low and final. Tonight, Emily decides what happens next. Everyone turned to me. The restaurant where I had once apologized for breathing too loudly went silent, waiting for my answer. I touched the ultrasound inside my bag, then my mother's cross at my throat. First, I said, my voice clear, you are going to say Mara's name. Then you are going to say mine. And this time, you are going to tell the truth. Vanessa looked at the stack of documents like paper had suddenly learned to breathe. Tyler stood beside her with his wet coat hanging wrong on his shoulders, all the careless polish gone from his face. The restaurant was silent except for the rain tapping against the front windows and the low hum of the refrigerators behind the bar. Bellavita had never felt so large. Not when I carried trays through it. Not when guests laughed beneath the gold lights. Not even when I collapsed on the marble and thought the whole room had turned into a witness against me. Now it felt like a courtroom built from everything they thought I was too tired to remember. Dominic stood a few feet away, not in front of me. That mattered. His attorney waited by the host stand with her pen ready. Ruth stood near the entrance, her kind eyes fixed on me like a hand at my back. I touched my mother's cross at my throat, then the ultrasound tucked safely inside my bag. One life behind me. One life ahead of me, both asking me not to disappear. Say Mara's name, I repeated. Vanessa's mouth tightened. This is absurd. Dominic's attorney lifted one page. The clinic referral, the payment authorization, the shelter intake note, and the employee file access record all connect through your manager login. Vanessa's eyes flicked toward Tyler. There it was. The instinct to make someone else carry the weight. Tyler saw it too and panicked first. She told me the system was clean, he said. She said Emily had no one watching her file. The words came out fast, ugly, and useful. Vanessa turned on him. You came to me. You said you needed a temporary name for someone in trouble. You sold me the access. You begged for it. You got paid. The room seemed to inhale. Dominic's attorney wrote nothing down. She did not need to. Her phone sat on the host's stand, recording openly with consent already stated when they entered. Tyler realized too late. Vanessa did too. I should have felt satisfaction. Instead, I felt tired. Not weak. Just done with the kind of people who turned harm into argument and called whoever spoke first the liar. Mara Ellis, I said. My voice cut through them, quiet but clear. Her name is Mara Ellis. Mine is Emily Harper. You used both because you thought women without protection were easier to erase. Tyler's face flushed. Emily, I never meant for you to get hurt. That old sentence. The coward's prayer. I looked at him and felt something inside me finally close. Not my heart. Not my mercy. The door he used to walk through whenever he needed me to feel sorry for him. You left me at a clinic, I said. You used my documents. You helped someone open my medical records. You tried to run when people asked questions. Whether you meant it or not stopped mattering a long time ago. Vanessa folded her arms, but her hands trembled against the sleeves of her coat. You think he is helping you? She said, nodding toward Dominic. Men like him do not help. They collect debts. I looked at Dominic. His face did not change, but something passed through his eyes. Maybe because part of him knew how easy it would be for me to believe her. Power always had a shadow, even when it stood on your side. I turned back to Vanessa. Maybe. But tonight he asked for my permission more times than you ever did. The silence after that was different. Even Dominic looked away for half a second. Ruth's eyes filled. Vanessa had no answer. The attorney stepped forward. Miss Harper, I need your decision on how to proceed with your employment matter. There are civil options, criminal referrals, privacy complaints, wage claims, and medical record violations. You do not need to choose everything tonight. Tyler swallowed. Emily, please. I almost laughed at the word please. He had found it so late. I thought of my motel room, already being cleared by people Dominic trusted. I thought of Mara at St. Agnes, finally using her own name. I thought of my mother in a hospital bed telling me Harper women did not disappear. For years, I had misunderstood her. I thought endurance meant silence. But silence had only kept me useful to people who benefited from my shame. I want the records preserved, I said. I want Mara protected. I want every woman whose file Vanessa touched notified safely. I want my wages paid correctly. I want my medical privacy restored. And I want Tyler held responsible through every legal channel available. The attorney nodded once, like she had been waiting for me to choose myself. Done. Tyler sank into a chair as if his legs had forgotten him. Vanessa stared at me with naked disbelief. You will regret this. I shook my head. No. I regret apologizing when I should have been documenting. Dominic's mouth almost moved. Almost. The closest thing to a smile I had seen from him. Outside, the rain slowed. Dawn had not arrived yet, but the black windows had softened at the edges. The doctor had told me stress was dangerous, that rest mattered, that my body had been speaking in warnings long before I listened. For the first time, I wanted to listen. Not because I was fragile, because I was responsible for more than survival now. Dominic walked me outside through the front door this time. Not the alley, not the service exit. The front door, beneath the polished brass sign guests posed beside for photographs. Ruth and the attorney followed behind. Tyler and Vanessa stayed inside with their lawyers and the evidence they thought a waitress would never understand. The morning air smelled like wet pavement and coffee from a shop opening down the block. Dominic's car waited at the curb. I stopped before getting in and turned back to look at Bellavita. The marble floor inside gleamed through the windows, clean as if nothing had happened. But I knew. They knew. And now, paperwork knew too. Dominic stood beside me, hands in the pockets of his black coat, the faint tattoo at his wrist visible where his sleeve shifted. The apartment above the clinic is ready, he said. Ruth stocked the kitchen. Your necklace is back. Your things are safe. And Tyler? We'll speak to people who do not care how charming he is. I nodded. The baby scan rested in my bag, the newer one beside it. 2 small pictures. One from the worst moment of my life. One from the first proof that we were still okay. I do not know how to accept help without feeling like I owe my soul, I admitted. Dominic looked at the wet street ahead. Then do not accept help from anyone who asks for it. I looked at him. And you? His gaze returned to mine, steady and unreadable, but not cold. I am paying an old debt forward. Your mother? His fingers brushed the tattoo at his wrist without seeming to notice. She used to say power only matters when it kneels low enough to lift someone who cannot stand. My throat tightened. Not from fear this time. From something gentler and harder to trust. I stood tonight, I said. Yes, Dominic said. You did. The words warmed me more than his coat had. I got into the car on my own. That mattered too. As we pulled away from Bellavita, the sky over Chicago began to pale, turning the wet streets silver. I pressed one hand over my stomach and felt nothing yet. No kick, no movement. Only the quiet certainty of a life continuing, because I had finally stopped mistaking endurance for silence. The room had laughed when I fell, but by morning, everyone who laughed had learned my name.